I remember looking at these embroidered, detailed pockets, the kind that you would tie on the outside. And they had such beauty and such patina and such magic in this handmade thing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my career in weaving would be just me trying to find my way to creating something like that. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm much closer than I was at the beginning.
Welcome back to Artfully Crafted. My name is Alienor, and each week I take you to a craftsperson's studio, interview them and show you their work. This week we're headed to southeast London to meet with handweaver Sabine van der Sande. I first came across Sabine's work in the world of interiors and was really taken by the historicist element that was coming across in her work. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Hi Sabine.
Hi.
We're here in your studio in Lewisham, and I love the setup. It's quite unusual, isn't it? I feel like we should introduce Mother House Studios, is that right?
Yeah.
What's it like?
So we are one of the only studios with integrated childcare. I have a young son, he's 1.5 years old, and we have studios around a courtyard with a playroom and a facilitator, and the children are free to roam around. We leave our doors open and the artists try and work whilst, being on site to parent as well.
So you're a weaver. What type of work do you do?
I am primarily inspired by weaving's history, specifically overshot coverlets. I make cushions, coverlets, sometimes rugs as well, but definitely the historical research is always my starting point and as much a part of my practice as the physical making itself. I'm very much inspired by a very specific era of American immigration, the homestead and coverlet weaving of that time where, coverlets were sometimes the only decorative feature in a one-roomed house, and it was really an opportunity for the weaver, who would be the woman. The men, professional weavers, were men, and women were the weavers at home. They made all the domestic cloth. And a lot of that cloth would be very boring, very plain. There was a big push to use a lot of hemp linen yarns. And then in amongst this, we get this uprising of beautiful decorative coverlets. And it was a way to express yourself. And if you think about it, the bed would have been a big feature in the room. And here you'd have these incredible displays of almost illustrative coverlets. And you see them getting passed around the country as well. You can follow little trails of, these patterns were passed from hand to hand, from mouth to mouth, from weaver to weaver. And not just in America, there's a really strong weaving tradition of overshot coverlets in Canada, in
I was more familiar with the quilting side of things, but I guess it's anything that sort of is a decorative aspect to the bed, right, as you say.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? Because, we're in London, right? How did you get into this, American homestead kind of inspiration?
Yeah, partially through the limitations of my own loom. So my loom is the same kind of loom that they would have had. Yeah. It is an English loom, actually. It was made in Kent, and it is a counterbalance loom. It has 4 shafts. It's a brilliant machine, but it is rudimentary in some ways. And when I was learning how to weave, trying to find how to bring more pattern into it without using a tapestry technique and, physically manipulating the warp yarns with your hand, led me to other people having discovered how to get more pattern in with a limited amount of design potential in the warp, in the loom even.
So making the most of the circumstances and
exactly.
What you can do.
A lot of my coverlets are actually in red and blue, which is very traditional.
And you're dressed in red and blue.
And yes, as I am, I do like red and blue. And it would have been because indigo and madder were very available as dye stuffs, at that time. But I'm also very open to being inspired by colour from all sorts of areas. So a lot from nature. I'm really fixated on wisteria plants at the moment. They have a very specific sort of purpley and light, almost yellowy green colour that, lives in my brain now and will probably come out in a textile someday. And children's toys, I've seen a lot of that with my son, and that's definitely filtering through. So inspiration really comes from everywhere, definitely not textile specific.
Yeah, it's sort of, you'll see something and then it lives in your brain for a while. I feel like that resonates with me, that then you kind of see it come out creatively, sometimes in like unexpected ways, and it could be like months later and you sort of
years later.
It's been sort of like percolating.
Had
them back somewhere. Can we talk a little bit about the process? Because I feel like that's kind of at the heart of what you do at the moment.
Yeah. Weaving is incredibly procedural, and it's partly what I like about it as a craft. Is it's a series of steps that you have to go through systematically with full concentration to get there. So weaving is essentially a system of organising threads under tension.
Okay.
And you begin with the warp threads, which travel in this direction, and the tension you apply to them can be weights, it can be a loom, it can be your body with like backstrap weaving. They used to pull the warp threads from their waist.
Wow.
And then you interweave the weft, and that goes at a 90-degree angle, and you make a matrix or a web. And when this is washed and the living fibres in the cloth relax and full and shrink and pull, you get the finished cloth. And that is essentially what weaving is.
I feel like you've done a very good, really concise introduction to what weaving is. But there's, it's like the technical side of it is really, there's a lot to it, isn't there?
Yeah, it always, for me, begins with an image I've seen, usually in a history book somewhere. And I reverse engineer it, normally with my computer software.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this gives me a mock-up of what the textile will look like in quite crude ways. But it does give you a sense of what, the overall, it really helps to design. I mean, weavers used to do this on paper, so I'm very lucky that I have that as a beginning. And then I can decide whether or not I want to develop this textile, whether I want to spend the next few weeks of my life focusing on this, And a lot of designs stop at that point, and if I do decide to go ahead, there's a lot of maths involved. A typical coverlet that I weave will have 600 and above ends of the warp.
Wow.
And each one is wound out on a warping mill to be all exactly the same length and the right length. And then these bundles are taken, and we see some of these bundles here. And they're put on the loom. It's called dressing the loom. And we stretch them out under tension, and then each one is individually threaded through what is called a heddle, and it's a little eye on the shafts, like a needle, like a fabric needle. And it is tied onto the front rod. It's called the apron rod, and tensioned evenly. And at that point, you can begin the weaving process.
Like everything that you've just described, is that all you doing it?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't get these sort of like ready to use?
No, that's not. No, sometimes I even receive textiles not in cones. Sometimes I dye my own textiles and I wind them onto cones once they're dyed, and then all of that begins. So it can be incredibly laborious. I think it's one of the main distinctive features of weaving is how many steps there can be, how long-winded it can be, and you know how machines have made it so much faster now that a lot of this labour is not something that we're aware of, familiar with, you know, it's quite lost to history.
Okay, and so then when it's on the loom, that's when you start that process of, you've dressed the loom basically, and that's when you've got that process of the two sort of threads, and so you've got shuttle in your hand.
This is a boat shuttle.
So this is what you pass sort of in between the threads, right, to create that perpendicular
web.
Yeah.
Yes, with a bobbin. This is a weaving bobbin, and the threads will open however you need them to, and that's what the loom helps you with. That's the main, all of the loom and the size of it and everything is to provide tension and to open up what's called a shed. The shed is the opening, and the boat shuttle, named so because it looks like a boat, will be thrown across from one end to the other, and it skids along and comes out the other side where the other hand catches it, which means I can only ever weave at the span of my arm. It's very physically demanding. And when I was pregnant, I had a lot of midwives touching my stomach, and everyone would comment on my abs and ask what kind of like fitness regimen was I into, and I'd be like, well, I'm a hand weaver.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's like, it's really your core muscles, isn't it?
Yeah, my baby was very protected in there.
Because it's sort of like you're kind of leaning, right? And then passing this thing. So yeah, actually it's activating all those, and probably back muscles as well, right?
Yeah, and your legs are going at the same time because they're pushing down the treadles, which control the pattern. So
you said about the bobbin in the shuttle, you wind the bobbin yourself as well?
I wind many, you know, up to, well, I can't put a number on it, 50 per item of clothing that I'm weaving. It's a lot of hours, and you need several days to set up the loom before you can, I call it preparing my sketchbook sometimes.
Okay.
Setting up the loom is like setting up a piece of paper, like sizing the paper, priming it, getting everything ready, and then the weaving begins. But it's not like one is more important than the other. If you don't set up the loom properly, there will be no weaving, and it's all part and connected. I mean, when you think about it, there are lots of textile metaphors for a reason, but these two are completely intermeshed. One cannot exist without the other.
Am I right in thinking you're self-taught when it comes to weaving? So you started with, a fine art foundation, right?
I definitely found fine art to be too conceptual for me. And it was very difficult to find my expression, to find my way in that field. So I gave up fine art practice for quite a while in my life and went on to study history of art with material studies, which was a fantastic course that was supposed to prepare you to become an art conservator, or, you know, you could just focus more on the art history side of it. And, you know, that also was incredibly interesting, and research informed so much of my practice, but I still needed to be doing something with my hands, and that energy was always going to find an expression in me. I did a lot of cooking, a lot of adapting old recipes and looking for old recipes and bringing them to life, and looking back on it now, I can see, you know, the pattern, it was always there. After a lot of, quite frankly, horrible jobs, I found my way into my profession, one that I still occasionally work in now, where I am a museum picture framer, which ticked a lot of the boxes for me, and it was a lot of working with my hands. It's a very beautiful craft, and I still really enjoy it now. But I wasn't having a lot of creative expression. The creative element was being done by someone else. The person who designed the frame was led by the artwork we were framing. And I guess I was always looking for, you know, I would pick up a lot of crafts and drop them again, and nothing really stuck. until one day I went to the V&A and was incredibly inspired by a lot of the textiles. Maybe very specifically, I remember looking at these embroidered, detailed pockets, the kind that you would tie on the outside. And they had such beauty and such patina and such magic in this handmade thing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my career in weaving would be just me trying to find my way to creating something like that. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm much closer than I was at the beginning. Because at the beginning I picked up a crochet hook and some acrylic horrible yarn and did some truly not beautiful, not patina textiles. Crochet led me to, I mean, I forget how these things happened, but at some point I was using old picture frames from my work to make frame looms, you know, really rudimentary little looms. And, you know, with a needle and thread, I was pulling in the warp manually.
So you were using the frame as the way to create the tension, basically.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a great way to start. I was doing more pictorial stuff. I was doing more tapestry. Still wasn't quite getting there, you know, but I just kept on trying to go further, and this led me to spending a lot of time in online digitized archives of old weaving manuals and in the British Library, and then the research part of me really kicked in and the two things started coming together for me: research creation.
That's so fascinating that it's so like archive led, like you can really see the academic side of you sort of like leading the way almost.
Yeah.
And like leading you to making, which is quite interesting. How, because you said that you use digital drawing as well, like what point did you train in that, or again is that sort of self-taught?
It's entirely self-taught, yeah.
And why that instead of drawing with paper and pencils?
Drawing with paper and pencil starts first, and then when you need more technical drawings, you want to get a computer involved, really. Much easier. There aren't many things you can make easier in hand weaving, but that's one thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I felt like I'd learnt so much in theory about how a loom worked that I decided to buy one that I saw going on eBay from a London-based weaver.
Do you feel like you had any idea what you were taking on? Like, obviously at the time you felt like you were ready. In hindsight, were you ready?
I remember unloading a van full of what looked like logs. This whole thing disassembles into sticks, essentially, and thinking, what have I done?
Did you have any instructions? Because, I mean, you said that your loom is from 19th century, right? So it's not like there's a manual at that point.
There was no manual.
So how long did it take you to figure it out?
Not that long, actually. My loom, even putting it together, has Roman numerals carved into certain pieces, like Yoldi IKEA flat pack. So, you know, you just match them up, and it led the way. Yeah. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, and that's the same with a lot of hand weaving.
Well, you at this point you didn't have a studio then, right?
No. The loom lived at the end of the bed. My husband is very patient and generous.
And we have to say at this point, he's also an artist, right? Yeah. So he gets it.
He gets it, yeah. Yeah. And we're very supportive of each other's crafts, which is just as well. They take up a lot of physical and mental space in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of, you don't switch off from being a maker or an artist or something that you like are at the core of your being, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would you sort of like define yourself?
As a mother, as a hand weaver, I feel like I finally can call myself that. I had imposter syndrome being self-taught for a really long time, which I think can be quite common. I'm a weaver and I'm a researcher. I research textiles.
You talked about being pregnant actually being you able to still make, right?
Yeah, and having a newborn was also quite compatible with being a weaver. They sleep quite a lot. It gets harder as they develop more in the world and run on their little legs. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And we live in a time where the village isn't always there.
Especially in London, I think it's, even when you think, oh, my family is also in London, it's like they could be an hour and a half away within London, It's
exactly.
not easy.
No. And that's where initiatives like the studio I belong to, Mother House, really are so important. There aren't enough of them. It shouldn't be a rarity to have a studio with integrated childcare when you think of how many artist parents there are out there, or artist parents that would be if they had the adequate resources to still make.
Yeah, because I think that's the unspoken cost. I think it's like people don't talk about the children they're not having because they can't afford them, or because they'd have to sacrifice their creative career or etc. Which is a difficult thing to quantify.
Yeah. And there are challenges for sure, and I'm very glad that this conversation, I think, is becoming louder and louder. And at the same time, there is space, I think, for us to explore what it means to be a mother and an artist. I really would like to make art not in spite of my child, but with and informed by. Weaving a lot by hand is becoming less and less possible for me, and that's forcing me into other areas of surface textile design and of finding ways to join up these little fragments of time. Like I've been carrying little pieces of fabric in my pockets that I can stitch together in like a little quilting way, things that are more transportable than this big old loom. It's a process and it's hard, and it can feel like constant evolution, constant growth, never getting comfortable, which I think is all parenthood, whether you're an artist or not.
Yeah.
But that space also has so much room for magic and creativity and becoming a better artist, and
seeing it not as an obstacle but as a catalyst.
Yeah. I find that being with Wilfred helps me see time differently, helps slow me down.
At the moment, the government funds roughly 2 days a week of childcare for a child of Wilfred's age, right?
Where you still will be paying a significant amount of money, but it is a lot less than it used to be. And then in September, there will be more where 2 days a week will be almost free.
But then you have 3 days a week where you're sort of still trying to work, but can't fully either, right?
Yeah, and that's where Mother House has come in, and on Wednesdays and Thursdays we come here, we play together, we find ways of trying to work together. You cannot have many expectations of what you're going to do. You can't come in with a to-do list because that's just setting you up for disappointment. But some days you get quite a bit done and other days less. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that my husband and my parents-in-law help me on Fridays. So Fridays are my weaving day, my day where I can really come in, which is not really enough for a practice as laborious as hand weaving.
Well, especially because it's a Friday today, which means that actually this week you don't get a making day because we're filming instead.
Yes.
So it's quite you've got very limited time really for, as you say, a laborious practice where you really ideally need uninterrupted time.
It's changed a lot for me because it used to be quite a relaxing Zen-like experience. The repetitive motions of the loom, the beat, the rhythm, and you'd really get into it. But when you're doing it in short little snatches of time, you don't find that rhythm, you don't find that dance almost with the loom, and it can be quite frustrating. Lots of dropping the shuttle on the floor.
Yeah, so that's kind of changed your relationship with weaving in a way, becoming a mother basically.
Yeah, it's definitely pushed me more into the design side of it, and I'm really enjoying that. And I've even started exploring, getting my paints out again and my inks and doing more illustration-based stuff for textile. So, there's grief and sadness at what I'm losing and excitement for the ways in which my practice will evolve.
So at the moment, do you think you're sort of shifting from production weaving to more design weaving?
I'm definitely looking at working with some weaving mills based in the UK, which I'm really excited about. I want to make this process as ethical as possible because it's so important to me that everything is, as far as possible, UK based.
Let's say that over the next few months you find the right suppliers, and then same thing with finding a supplier of British wool that felt like, you know, it was the right fit for you. What would the process then look like in the future? Would you still be doing all of this?
Absolutely.
Sort of from A to Z? Like, what would it be like?
I will start with research, just like I always have. I will start with designing. I always start by designing what I would like for myself. Sometimes as literally as I need a new tablecloth, and that will start a design, you know. So it will begin with that and following my whims and interests and allowing enough room for play and to explore that. I will physically hand weave the samples. So with sampling, you do a smaller amount of cloth just to see what it will look like. And then usually this process is repeated a few times. It's rare that you'll get, you know, just the right combination on the first go.
Not everything's going to make it to the sampling stage, right?
No, exactly. And then the ones that do, they have something that really, who knows what it is. They've got enough, they tick the right boxes, and I will start physically making them. And then sometimes some don't get past that stage. I have a lot of woven samples lying around that, you know, haven't gone any further. They just didn't translate into the fabric in the way that I wanted. And when you do have a sample that is right, I envision bringing that to a mill and finding the right partners and scaling it up. And that's their area of expertise in some ways.
And so, but that will be, it then won't be hand woven, right? It's
No.
not, you're not looking to partner with like a team of hand weavers, it'll be machine woven.
It's a way of making it somewhat more affordable and producing a volume that I by myself cannot meet the demand for my textiles. So it's actually very exciting for me to be able to access a larger volume of textiles quickly, still working in tiny batches because, you know.
Well, the sourcing of British wool, right, it's not, if it's like ethical, etc., there's not going to be tons of it. It sounds like it'll be quite a joyful change for you, because if at the moment with motherhood, if the pressure is on your time in the hand process, but you feel like you have more time for designing, then actually that sort of shift will really help. A day or so a week of like dedicated like time, that would be enough for the sampling, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. It would be much more manageable.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. I hope you do find the right partners. Do you still think of that moment at the V&A? Is there still something about it that's sort of like a guiding principle?
I do, and I see it, I think, much more clearly in hindsight, that the cloth had a patina, a quality to it, an aura almost, of what I now know as a textile designer that is kind of built from the unevenness of making this cloth by hand, you know? And its age and its history and the fact that it's in a museum and all the rest of it. But ever since, that's sort of been trying to find that feeling in my own textiles is what leads me and drives me on, even when I do have those dark moments when I want to put my loom on the street. I don't give up, because I really want to capture some of that feeling of specialness, that patina that was in that little pocket in the V&A.
In 10 years' time, what do you see, what's the dream?
I have definitely got a dream of having a beautiful studio with a field next to it, a field of flax.
Yeah.
And I would grow my own flax right from the beginning. I would learn how to spin. I'd get a big spinning wheel. I'd make my own linen yarns, and I'd set up a warp on the loom for the most special blanket imaginable. I have actually seen another weaver on the internet doing this, and I am in awe, and it looks like so much fun. So, you know, maybe in the future when my children are a bit more, and when they're older and demand maybe a little bit less from me, that could be the vision.
When they're at school and they can walk to school. So you can just go into a field of flax.
Yeah.
That sounds really lovely. Well, I guess let's end on that note then, because it's quite a sort of lovely, dreamy one. But I hope all of that comes to fruition, and really excited to see where your inspiration takes you next.
Thank you.
I've linked Sabine's website below, as well as any other things that we mentioned in the course of the conversation. If you have any questions for Sabine about weaving, please leave them below and I'll get her help to answer them. Thank you for watching. It means a lot, especially as at the moment this channel is entirely self-funded. So please spread the word. Like, share and subscribe. See you next week. We don't know, like I think it's in the gym.
We're not gym bros.
No. To anybody who is a gym bro, we love you.
We're very jealous.
We're very jealous. Yeah.